Welcome, everybody, to the School Leadership Show. With me, as always, is co-host Jen David Lang. Hi, Jen.
Hi there. Great to be here, Mike, as always.
And Jen, we have a super exciting interview planned today. 3 authors, the co-authors of the book Principled, now spelled like principal and then ED, like school principal. So Principled, Navigating the Leadership Learning Curve, by Kate Barker, Courtney Ferrura, and Rachel George. And we're going to have the authors introduce themselves, and then we'll get right into it. So Kate, do you want to start?
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Kate Barker, and I am a proud and seasoned principal and educator. I've been a principal for 17 years, and I have been in education for 30 as a teacher and a coach, and really passionate about early childhood and really supporting the underserved.
Thanks, Kate. Courtney?
Hey guys, I'm Courtney Ferrua. I am currently in the role of Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment in McMinnville, Oregon. But before that, I was the proud principal of Washer Elementary, where I served for 6 years. Washer was a model school, and I was honored to be the Oregon Elementary Principal of the Year. It was a great ride.
Very cool. And Rachel?
Hey, my name is Dr. Rachel George. I am the elementary programs director in the Oregon Trail School District. I've had like 3 different titles over the last couple months, but I'm also a pre-K principal. Previously was an elementary principal for 7 years, and we did a dramatic school turnaround and was identified by ICL for those changes, and then was a middle school principal previous and was a model school for 2 years in a row. So love these wonderful gals that I am here with, and just excited to be on your show. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing some time with us. And is it so we were all elementary principals at one point, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. I still wonder why I stopped doing that job. It legit was the best job ever.
It is.
All right. So let's get into it. Why don't you talk a little bit, Kate, about how the book is structured and how you all decided to put this together?
Well, we were really excited about writing a book that would be very authentic and very practical, and something that could truly be a guide for educators, and not just for principals, but for anyone in a leadership role. And when we looked into how we would divide the book, of course, we had many thoughts and tries, and as writers do, they have drafts and then they change their mind. We just found this logical breakdown of 4 different sections, and the first one being reflection, the second one being focus, the third one being connection, and the fourth being care. We feel like all of those components need to be a part of an effective leader. And within those sections, we have chapters that are guideposts to attaining excellence.
So let's talk about each of those 4 main parts in turn, starting with reflection. So 3 chapters in that first part: reflection and refinement, find your people and the power of mentors. I really want to talk about that. And then receiving feedback with style. So let's get into those parts. Anybody kind of want to start us off in terms of, maybe why that's sort of the opening? Beginnings and endings are important, right? So why open with reflection and refinement?
Sure, I can take that, Mike. So, when you're an elementary principal or a principal in general, there's not really they don't teach you the stuff that you need to know in principal school. And it's so easy to kind of float around your building thinking, oh my gosh, that's my job, and that's my job too. And just feel so overwhelmed that you're constantly living in reaction mode. And what we know about brains is that when you're in reaction mode, you're not making your best decisions. It's so easy in education in general, like there's so many kind of squirrel moments where there's this brand new thing that we want to do, or there's this that we want to do. And so we really felt like building that foundation of reflection and reflective practice is really kind of to simmer down the emotions of the situation and the demands of the day, to really start by thinking about, okay, what do you know about your building? What do you know about yourself? Where are your areas that you're feeling pretty solid in, and where are your areas that feel really uncomfortable? Who are the people that you know that can reflect your blind spots to you? So, those mentors and those friendships that you have. Who are your experts that you can call on to replicate what they're doing? And how are you going to expand your perspective by getting feedback from other people in your building? And so that's really where we want to start. Before you can do anything with Style and Grace, you got to know where you're at, and you have to really surround yourself with truth tellers.
So say a little bit more about that in terms of finding mentors, because it's not like you just walk up to somebody and you're like, hey, want to be my mentor? Because then they run away the other direction screaming, like, I'm not doing this. And I feel like when we're students and graduate students and in principal school, you kind of have these natural supports and mentors and coaches. And then, that does tend to disappear when you get your first administrative gig. So what advice would you give for newly minted principals around, identifying those folks to help mentor them?
So we talk exactly about that. We talk about, finding a mentor is a little bit like dating, where it really has to be a good fit. And in a lot of districts, which is a great thing, they might give you a district mentor who's a person that's kind of assigned to be your person. And what we know is sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But really finding a mentor who can expand your thinking. We really encourage, so Kate, Rachel, and I are all working in different districts, and we connected through our administrative group, state group. And by doing that, we were able to kind of expand each other's thinking and see how a different system operates. And that's been a really, that's, part of a mentor opportunity that we really encourage people to take advantage of. We also talk about my favorite mentor, which is the ugly cry mentor, because this job is stinking hard sometimes. And you kind of alluded to it, Mike, where it's like, you lose some friends when you turn to the dark side, quote unquote, right? And you don't have that, teaching buddy across the hall that you can, just go to and unload. You kind of have to be a little bit more careful about those conversations. And so finding someone who's very confidential, who will let you be yourself and really listen to support you, just makes the lift of the job feel lighter.
And I feel like that kind of flows nicely into this idea of receiving feedback with style and the feedback web that you all put in the book. Somebody say a little bit more about that and the feedback.
Can I just jump in, Mike, for 1 sec?
Of course, Jen.
So I just wanted to point out the elephant in the room, which is that we're recording this at the start of the school year while we are still in the midst of a pandemic. And so while you're listening to all of this, this is all wonderful advice for always, but I chose to summarize this book for the main idea right now, because it's actually an incredible book for right now. So as you are listening to the advice from Kate, Courtney, and Rachel, just think how much more you need this right now. And then the second thing for your listeners who may not have the book in front of them is that a lot of the suggestions that you're hearing from these authors, they have put together some incredible templates that you can use in the book to jot down ideas. It's incredibly practical. So like that ugly cry mentor, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I don't have an ugly cry mentor, and shout outs to all the ugly cry mentors who have helped all of us. They have templates in the book where you can take a moment and think, who might I reach out to be my ugly cry mentor? Or as you're about to jump into the next section about feedback, I love some of their templates. So I know sometimes people are a little shy about bragging or sharing the specifics. So I just want to say that incredible worksheet and note-taking opportunities in this book. So proceed with feedback. Sorry.
And before we let Kate go on that, I think just one more thing on mentors. I was having a conversation with the superintendent the other day, and he was talking about how he had one mentor that he got a lot from and just learned a ton from. And then he sort of transitioned and is working with a different mentor. So there may be times in people's careers or seasons where, one person is the right mentor for you, but as you learn and grow, you might end up with somebody different or might need the expertise of someone different. So Kate, go ahead. Talk about feedback.
Well, you alluded to the feedback web, and it is a template. As when we were writing the book, we really felt strongly that we needed that practicality, that it wasn't just going to be this theory, a book of theories. It was really, truly going to be grounded in promising practices. And so we know that feedback is so critical to the evolving community. And so we put in a graphic organizer where we have our readers and leaders write down where are some of the ways, traditional, untraditional, that you might get feedback.
I love one of the things that she wrote in this section, because there are little anecdotes about the three principals. And in her section here, she said she thought when she became a principal that people would just kind of walk into her office and say, hey, Kate, here's some feedback. And that didn't happen. And so I'm sure that's not happening for a lot of leaders right now. And so I like how you talked about the importance of proactively putting systems in place to regularly solicit feedback. So yeah, maybe you can talk about some of the ways to actively solicit feedback, since all those people didn't rush into your office to give you the feedback you needed to grow and improve.
Yes, Jen, thanks for bringing that up. But we tell on ourselves all throughout the book, because we feel like so often we just see the positive things and the shiny things, and what we really felt that was missing in the market was really a very truthful look of how hard it is to be a principal. And so we do tell stories throughout the chapters. And like Jen said, one of my stories was I naively thought that if somebody was disgruntled, or if somebody had something positive to say or some sort of feedback, that they would just waltz into my office and tell me. And so it hit me my first year when, gosh, no one was coming to tell me. So I just assumed everything was going well. And it was a hard lesson in creating those systems and structures and being really mindful and proactive about gathering feedback. So one of the ways is to create this web. We cannot wait for the end of the year state assessment scores to tell us how we're doing. Yes, that is one way, but that's more of an autopsy. And that we need not only the formative assessments where we're gathering data, but we also need to climb to the top of that jungle gym and look at what's happening at recess. And you can tell so much by just waltzing through your hallways and gathering how are people interacting with one another. You can learn a lot by weaving in and out of the carpool lane. What are your parents portraying? We also talk a lot about it is very important, and we're naturally drawn to the staff members and the parents and the students that want to tell us positive things, and how we have to really be brave enough to kind of go to the dark side and listen to other people's contrary opinions. And so to be really thoughtful and mindful about setting up those structures to gather that feedback.
And that is so important, and being deliberate about it, and not always. And I found this as a principal too, and we've all done it, right? When you're out, you get up out of your office to go walk around and visit classrooms, and if you're not careful, you end up in the same half dozen classrooms the entire time, because that's where you're comfortable, or that's where you get some positive reinforcement. So yeah, that's a huge, huge piece of it. So the second part of the book is about focus, and I think this is so important, because you mentioned it, or somebody mentioned it at the beginning, this idea of, well, what am I supposed to do? Right? That seems like my job. Oh, wait, that's my job. What do you have to say about focus? I guess I'll just kind of open it up. Who'd like to go after that one?
Courtney hit it right on the head. Like, you definitely are spinning, going in all directions. And I think this is really relevant to educational leaders right now. I've heard from so many friends throughout the nation where they're like, Rachel, last year was hard, but this year's even harder. Like, we're having to navigate so many different hurdles, and the complexity and the stress is just compounded over the last 2 years. And so I think getting really crystal clear about what are you focusing on, what are you going to go deep with, because you can do it all for sure, but you can't do it all at the same time. And the three of us, one of our really core foundational beliefs is that you can do academics and social emotional at the same time. Again, a hot topic right now, because there's a huge conversation around learning loss, unfinished learning, accelerated learning, call it whatever it is, but really trying to help support students academically where they're at while still moving them forward, while also identifying and understanding that there's a level of trauma, stress, and support that the last couple of years have created, and also understanding that staff aren't in the same capacity that they were in 2 years ago as well. But we believe with the belief of high expectations, loving on the students high enough that we can really help move mountains. So being able to really hone in on those and talk about some high leverage strategies. We reference Hattie, effect size. What are your like best bang for your buck instructional strategies to really help move kids forward? Because right, there's many strategies under the sun that you could use. There's many best practices, but when you're talking about efficiency and limited time, and right, time is one commodity that we can't have more of, it's fixed. How are we going to spend that? And how are we using that time with students while developing relationships with students and kids and families? Kate, Courtney, what did I miss?
Before they jump in, I wanted to add one thing. At the beginning, Rachel, you said that, you can have a lot of priorities, a lot of focus that you can, but I was reading some research recently that said, actually, you can't, that if you have 10 or more priorities, it's not that you do them poorly, you actually get none of them done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you have 4 to 10, then you get some of them done. If you have 2 to 3, you do them well.
And we agree
I
with
thought
that.
that was
sure.
really interesting
Mhm.
contribution.
Keep it skinny, friends.
Well, and I think too, identifying those effective practices that align with those 2 to 3 priorities. And then after you've had some success for a couple of years, because those first couple of years are hard. And if you have some success, you can build on that moving forward. But, to Jen's point, if you try to do everything, you get nothing done. So interesting. You talk in there too about working through your strengths. And I think, unfortunately, I feel like over time in education, we've spent a lot of time trying to remediate people's weaknesses, or we've had this deficit mindset in terms of improving, if you will, staff and students. And somebody want to talk a little bit about that idea of working through your strengths? That I found that fascinating.
Sure, I can go ahead and take that. I think that I know I was the principal that I would look at another principal and think, oh my gosh, I want to do that initiative, or I want to try out this new thing, and I was that principal that had the 72-page school improvement plan because I wanted to do it all. And I did have to learn that you do have to go skinny, but you have to go deep. And one of the ways to do that is to identify not only your strengths and build upon those strengths, but then how are you strategically gathering the people around you that may have strengths that are different than your own. And sometimes that's hard to do because we naturally hire people that are most like ourselves, which can be great in some regards, like if you have a certain philosophy or your whys are the same. I think that's really important. But actual strengths and talents to see through the why, to see through those goals is really imperative. And we talk about when you're being super intentional about when you're creating those interview questions, what are holes on your staff? What are gaps that you may need filled? And it could be gender, it could be ethnicity, it could be technology talents, it could be like really voracious researchers. fill those gaps because it will strengthen your community overall.
I feel like we could talk for hours just about hiring and thinking about filling those gaps. I had one wise mentor of mine when I was new as a principal. She was a fellow principal, and we were talking about hiring, and she said, Mike, hire in haste, repent in leisure. So, I mean, of how important the hiring process is, and to be a little bit more circumspect when we think about who we're inviting into our teams and our schools. So the third section in the book is connect. And this one, you hit one in here that I want to start with, but we can obviously go anywhere y'all would like. This idea of developing your network, because I feel like this is something that the private sector does really well. I mean, you think about it, principals are executives. And in the private sector, in the non-education world, people are taught explicitly how to network. But we just sort of expect folks coming out of the classroom and becoming school leaders to just know how to do this. Rachel, do you want to talk a little bit about how you approach that and your thinking around developing your network?
Yeah, you bet. And I think for me, it came out of survival, right? It was not something that came natural to me. And I think that probably stands really true for a lot of educators for the exact fact you lined out, right? So how many times do we have teachers that close their door or work in isolation for a variety of reasons? But in fact, I think the last 2 years have really helped magnify the need to be able to be connected, right? When we're not able to see people face to face or opt in as much to interact. But regardless, outside of COVID and all the other challenges we've taken on, it's a lifeline, straight out lifeline for support. And I think that when we beg, steal, and borrow from other folks, their ideas, we're better together. We truly are. And that's one of the beautiful things about the relationship with the three of us. And that's definitely what attracted us to be friends and to connect. And it was a lifeline for me when I came from middle school as a middle school principal down to elementary. It had been eons. Like, I had not worked with primary kids. And all of a sudden I have like little kids that are not even up to my knee running around. And I'm like, what do I do with this? And Twitter has just been instrumental to be able to have a lens into other people's schools, their leadership, and to be able to share resources and bounce ideas off each other has just been phenomenal. So the beauty of it too is to be able to actually finally meet these people face to face, right? So we develop these incredible connections over social networks, Twitter, Facebook, Voxer, Instagram. And to be able to finally meet them is amazing. I mean, it's like Christmas. It truly is. We were super fortunate that we were able to have NAESP this last year, face to face and in person. And that was just completely glorious because it had been such a long time. But we really, truly are better together, and that support network's big. And I think that it takes a little bit of getting used to, right? You talked about the dance and dating, and that's definitely like what networking is for sure, right? You're a little vulnerable. It's that middle school dance. Hey, I'm going to go ask Sally to go dance with me. I hope she doesn't turn me down. And you know what? People want to connect. So take the step, jump in. If you've been watching on the sidelines, stop being a social media stalker. It's okay if you do, but like, take that step, take that risk, reach out, ask them for some help, ask them what their thoughts are. People are there for you. They truly are.
Thanks, Rachel. And really, you talked about social media, in-person conferences, certainly all the connections folks make throughout their schooling and their informal networks. And I just think that is such a big deal that we don't pay enough attention to for folks in education. How about another one that you mentioned in that section on connecting is about embracing hard conversations. And I think that I liked that way of thinking about it, because I think sometimes we all approach it as, oh, you have to, just suck it up and do those hard conversations, versus I like the idea of sort of flipping it on its head and being like, embrace it. Somebody want to say a little bit about that?
Sure, I'm happy to. I think, one of the things that Kate and Rachel and I all really believe in is that everyone deserves to be successful. And that's true for students, and that's true for the adults in our system as well. And so when something's not working, we need to be brave enough to lean into those conversations and to do so with deep love and empathy and positive intentions, and really reflect back, what we're seeing and what we can problem solve together to make it better. But through those hard conversations, the biggest gifts happen. And, when you I can remember a couple on my staff that I thought, gosh, this might really go south. And yet getting over those hurdles together and leaning into, the darkness and coming out on the other side together really builds those.
And one of the things that struck me about this chapter is exactly that hard conversations are not to be gotten through, but just, I don't know exactly how you phrased it, but that actually it's the hard conversations that lead to the transparency and the teacher growth that actually prevents them from burning out and leaving. We're always afraid to have those hard conversations because we think people will take it the wrong way, they're going to leave, we're going to have turnover. But I like that you said that it actually can lead to real growth and people staying. And a short aside is that Mike and we met online, and then the first time we met in person was at a conference doing a workshop on difficult conversations. And I can't share on air what happened when we met the first time in person, but let's go networking. Sorry, go ahead, Kate. You wanted to add about the hard conversation.
Well, I just think that it is absolutely essential to for a culture, for the leaders, and for everyone in the community to be brave enough to have those hard conversations, that it will elevate everyone's practice. And people see what and are watching all the time, like what are your expectations, but the most important thing is, how are you following through with those expectations, both with appreciation and recognition, but also if somebody is not fulfilling the expectations and the agreements of the community, just like with our students, and we have to guide and support and love people enough to hold them to those high expectations. And something that we've talked about a lot in the book is, how do you do that with navigating all of those personalities? I know I had a staff of 65, 75 people, and that's a lot of personalities for one administrator, let alone the 530 students and their parents. And so just being thoughtful and being prepared and being strategic about how do you have these hard conversations while maintaining relationship, while upholding high standards.
One of the things that we talk about in there is going into those curious, not furious, and seeking to ask questions to help us understand the situation better. Because I think that, people get turned off by top-down leadership. And when there's, being reprimanded didn't feel good when we were little, it doesn't feel good as adults. But when you engage in a conversation with someone who truly wants to understand your experience, then you can come out on the other side stronger together.
And I think that it sends a very strong and positive message that it's because I care about you so much and want you to get better that I am giving you this growth producing feedback, or that we are having this difficult conversation. Because if I didn't care, I wouldn't bother. So speaking of caring, so that was a great segue. I totally could have done TV news. Okay, maybe not, like Ron Burgundy or something. All right. So in terms of caring, the fourth big section in the book. So let's talk about that. And this can be, the three chapters in there: find your balance, show gratitude and grace, and lead with love. And this is probably the point where some people, sorry, ladies, they will start to roll their eyes and say, oh, here we go. It's all about the balance and the gratitude and grace. And so what do you have to say to those people, those non-believers out there?
No, I will absolutely take that question, because I think it's a really important question to ask, because when people start talking about love and they start talking about their emotions.
I wish this was a video podcast and people could see your facial expressions. Okay,
Yeah.
magical. It's perfect. Keep going.
Oh, thank you. I think that it makes people uncomfortable to even some people just to talk about love. And we feel so strongly about love and showing love in your communities. We don't feel like successful communities can thrive without it. But the difference is that, yes, I will be the first to say, I'm the principal that says, I love you all the time, every day. I say it on the intercom. I say it when my kids get on the bus. I say it to my staff at the end of every staff meeting. But I know that is not everybody's style. And I know that you have to know your community well enough and your kids well enough and your staff well enough to know, okay, are they going to be okay with me giving them a big hug pre-pandemic? Or do I need to show my love in different ways? And I think this is what we talk about, is that love, yes, love is saying I love you, but love is also having those hard conversations that we just talked about. Love is having really high expectations for every single student and staff member, and then helping and intervening and providing the supports and the differentiation for everyone to reach those high expectations. Love is taking your lunch. What school leader actually gets lunch, but staying after school and working with the student. Love is knowing a student's story or a staff member's story so that you can lead them in the right direction and with the right intervention. Love is so much more than just those 3 words. And I think that that's what we really try to write about, is that there are thousands of different ways that you can show your love, and to not be so squirmy about it.
I love it. Fantastic. Anything about balance? Because we talked about it at the beginning. Last year was hard. This year is going to be an order of magnitude harder for folks. There's just no question about it. The levels of complexity have been ratcheted up unbelievably. Shortages in staffing. We could go on and on about all the challenges that are going to face school leaders. So what do you say about balance? Is there such a thing? And how do people find it?
Well, I think that the 3 of us have a little bit of a different opinion on it, which is totally okay. And I think that that's life. I would advocate balance. I think Kate and Courtney would have a different version. I think Kate I'm a recovering workaholic. Some people would probably disagree. Kate very much is like hard worker, workaholic too, kind of transitioning out of that. And then Courtney, haven't you said like it's a shift of priorities, or the intentionality of being thoughtful about how you're allocating your time? Remind me what that piece is before I hop in.
Yeah, I think about those, those balls that go side to side, and balance feels precarious. It feels like, all of these rocks that I'm trying not to drop. And I try to find my center wherever I am. So when I'm at work, I'm fully at work. When I'm home, I'm fully at home. And I think it's about finding that menu of something that feels right to you, and to really listening to your body, and your, just emotional needs. Because I think what we really need to drive home to our colleagues and our friends right now is that we actually don't make great decisions when we're too stressed. If we're not caring for ourselves and managing our own stress level, we're actually doing a disservice to children. And that doesn't mean throwing the to-do list out the window, because we've got to, find time and manage it all. But really being thoughtful about what we need in order to stay in that zone.
So wherever you land with your philosophy on balance, I think there's a couple key takeaways that we have included within our book. And that's really putting yourself first and saying that it's okay, cleaning off that to-do list, keeping it simple, moving your body, right? Getting that exercise, which is so important. There's so much research about the endorphins, and then also just the stress relief that it has alongside of it. creating and fostering that gratitude and being thankful, spending time with family and being present, and also being thoughtful about what you're putting in your body. Like, we're notorious for chugging, maybe just I am, black 4-shot Americanos, right? And just like maybe having 3 of those each day and finding like the old Halloween candy in the bottom drawer, or running down to the office at the other side of the building because I'm out of stuff. So I think just what we put in our body matters. And, I don't know if I talk about it in this book, but I talk about it a lot when I'm speaking, that my mom did not do a very good job of this as an elementary principal. And she crashed and burned the last couple of years that she worked. She had like a knee go out, an ankle go out, like things just broke because she was so out of whack. And that chronic stress impacts your body. And that is one thing that we don't want to replicate. And I think that that's an old school mentality, right? And I think that people have really come to realize that over COVID, right? That last one in, or first one in, last one out, like that's bogus. That's stupid. You can work efficiently and effectively, and you don't need to put in those long hours. It's a matter of setting boundaries and being explicit about it and talking to people openly about where you're at and what you're doing. So anyway, that's a big soapbox of mine. So I'll zip it and let you move on, because that's like a whole nother 2 hours with me.
Good. Well, I'm glad you didn't say that Diet Coke was bad, because then we would have been done. Okay. So just
I brought a whole box of Diet Coke to my secretary this week.
Well, and
her over.
And I think, Rachel, your point's well taken. And part of it is just is leading by example and having the courage to have those conversations about balance, about putting yourself first. And that says a lot about loving your staff. It says a lot about helping people to navigate these challenging times. So I want to be sensitive to everybody's time. I feel like we could talk forever. This is so much fun and so informative. But I'm going to give Jen, I'll let you back clean up here. Any kind of parting shots or thoughts to... You did a summary of the book, which I'm guessing you'll make available to listeners if they shoot you an email.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. No, I felt like this book is the perfect book for now, because it talks about the human side of leadership, right? There's not a chapter there about the building grounds, right? Or balancing your budget, or, these 4 main parts of the book on, reflect, focus, connect, and care. It's about people. It's about how we interact with ourselves and how we interact with others. And so if you're floundering right now, or even just don't have firm footing during this challenging time, it's worth buying the book. It's only short 200 pages, and perhaps read it with a leadership team, because you're not alone, and and discuss the 4 parts. I think that would be a wonderful way to bring your leadership team through this challenging year.
So the book I wish I had when I was in school administrator school, the book I wish I had when I was teaching courses in school administrator school, is Principled: Navigating the Leadership Learning Curve by Kate Barker, Courtney Ferreira, and Rachel George. Ladies, thank you so much for taking time out of what I know are busy and hectic schedules to share some of your wisdom with our listeners. And we'll make sure we link to the book so that folks can grab it quickly, and certainly encourage everyone to do so. So thank you so much.
Thank you
for
Mike.
having
It was
us.
awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time and your book.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the School Leadership Show, a podcast for aspiring and practicing school leaders. Send your comments, questions, and show ideas to me, Mike, at schoolleadershipshow.com. And please consider rating the podcast in iTunes and leaving a comment. And definitely pass the show along to your colleagues.